And a good morning to you. Afternoon baseball on the horizon. This is Card Hub 365, presented by Greybar here on Sports Hub STL, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Joe Roderick, and joined alongside by Stefan Caray, making his Sports Hub STL debut. Stefan, what's going on?
I'm so excited to be here. Can't wait to talk some baseball, talk about the Cardinals. What a fun start it's been to 2025. And just to sit here with you and all that you guys have built over at Sports Hub STL, this is great to be a part of it.
We're happy to have you on board. Stefan's going to be doing a lot of post-game stuff for us, and then jumping in on the Cards Hub 365. With the last name of Caray, you're going to talk a lot of baseball with us.
Yeah, exactly. Nepotism has its perks at some points, but no, this is great. I really I can't wait. St. Louis has been so good to my family. My dad couldn't have been more thrilled to come over a few seasons ago, and just getting to be up at Busch Stadium, see the Clydesdales last weekend for opening day. This is my first time seeing it. So the community has been so good to us, and I hope to one day ingratiate myself with them. My dad went to Parkway West High School in Manchester, Missouri, so he's just a Cardinal guy through and through, and I think through the trickle down, I'm getting to that point as well.
Well, we have a game today, 3:00 start time here in St. Louis. Welcome your comments into the YouTube chat as we get going here on Cards Hub 365. Stefan, the lineups are out for the game today. We will get to those in just a bit for the Cardinals and the Red Sox both. But you and I were talking a little bit beforehand when we got things when we were getting things going for today, and as you mentioned, kind of a historic start the Cardinals have right now.
Yeah, it's been tremendous for St. Louis. Only 3 times since 1900 have the Cardinals recorded 10 or more hits in their first 7 games of the season, 1901, 1956, and here in 2025. I don't think very many people expected this offense to be able to put up quite the numbers that they're putting up, but it isn't just the hitting. It isn't just hitting the baseball. It's OPS. It's getting on base. They're in the top 5 in virtually every offensive category, including second in hits in the league, only behind the Chicago Cubs. But when you look beyond the fact that the Cardinals have done this 3 times since 1900, it's even more important to note that only 3 major league teams have done it since 1961. The most recent since the Cardinals here in 2025, the 1999 Cleveland Indians. They went on to win 97 games and win the AL Central, and they were beaten by the Boston Red Sox in the ALDS that year. But there's a lot of momentum for the Cardinals, a lot to live up to, and I think the fans should be really happy about what Brant Brown is doing with these guys.
Yesterday on the post-game show, Ryan Fagan and I were talking just about that, the whole Brant Brown approach to hitting, and how it's such a simple phrase, but it really does speak wonders to just the approach that these guys need to take. And there's a time to hit and there's a time to slug. And you are seeing that up and down this lineup this so far this year with the approaches that even a veteran like Nolan Arenado has been taken at the plate in a year there that he needed to kind of prove maybe to himself and prove to St. Louis that last year was a fluke when it came to his offensive numbers. So you look at what they are doing, the at-bats that some of these guys are taking, and this is exactly, the good at-bats lead to these hits and lead to wearing down pitchers and getting into bullpens, and then you just pile on the hits from there.
Right. Well, that's what leads to the best on-base percentage in Major League Baseball. That's what the Cardinals are sitting at right now. And Brant Brown has complemented that idea of there's a time to hit and there's a time to slug with the idea that home runs are thrown, not hit. That he said that multiple times. Pitchers are the ones making the mistakes on home runs. You can swing out of your shoes as much as you want, but more often than not, you're not going to get the piece of contact that you want if it's a really good pitch. If it's a bad pitch, drive it out of the ballpark. We've seen it with Ivan Herrera really coming through with the power. But top to bottom in the order, this team is really coming through in the clutch. They're hitting for contact. They're hitting away from the shift. They're pulling the baseball. They're hitting the ball the other way. And it's just good old-fashioned Cardinals baseball. It's something that fans have been around this team have gotten used to seeing over the years. They went away from it last 2, and now it seems like they're back to where they want to be.
Hitting away from the shift and hitting where the guys aren't. You said it perfectly, because you look at that 9th inning yesterday, and going into it, it started off with, okay, it's 3 outs. Let's get this over with. Let's move on to tomorrow. And then next thing you know, you have the tie and run at the plate, and things were getting really fun really quick. And there were many, it wasn't just mash. They were finding the holes and it was ground balls into where the defenders weren't. It's real simple when it works for you. And you see just how fun this game can be and how you don't need to hit 4 or 5 home runs a day to have a good offense.
No, not even a little bit. And you can look back to the end of that series against the Angels, that extra inning game where they scored 3 to match the Angels 3 in the top of the 10th. Cardinals battled back. They ended up losing that game 9-7. But then they were down for the count when Sonny Gray started in the finale on Sunday. And they rattled off run after run after run in the final 3 innings of the game, and they closed it out strong. So this is a team that could really step up to the plate literally and figuratively. They found a way to be the rally cards, if you will, to try and put pressure on opposing bullpens. The Cardinals' relief has struggled a little bit this season. I think that's safe to say. But their bats have picked them up in times of need. That's why they're sitting a game above 500. They're entering a really, really tough stretch of games. Pittsburgh's not going to be easy. Philadelphia, New York, etc. All these different teams are going to be a challenge for St. Louis. But the reality is the way that they're hitting the ball right now, fans should be excited that they get these teams early in the season. And at a ballpark like Fenway that's hitter-friendly, I'd like to see them really try and slug a little bit more today than they did yesterday, but put the ball in play and good things happen.
Today you have Andre Palante on the mound. You need him to go. You need another 4, 5, even 6 innings out of him. He looked really good in his first start of the year last week over the weekend, going 5 innings before the rain hit. Easily could have continued on in that game too, into the 6th and maybe even pushed it into the 7th. The one thing that we've seen a lot of this year, prior to Eric Fetty yesterday, is the pitch count for all these starters has been relatively low, and they're just getting in there, they're pitching to contact, and they're getting these innings over with fairly quick.
Well, it's a different atmosphere too at Fenway Park. You got to give Eric Fetty a little bit of credit as compared to Busch Stadium. Busch Stadium is a pitcher's paradise. It's a big ballpark. It's tough to get the ball out. It's tough to get the ball in the air for a successful hit. But at Fenway, you look over your right shoulder and the Green Monster's right there. It is difficult to pitch to right-handed hitters. This is a really good Boston Red Sox lineup. So I'm excited to see what Palante does here in his second career start at Fenway Park. His first time came in 2022. He went 5 2/3, gave up 2 earned runs. But I think that as long as he keeps the ball down and away, especially from those right-handed hitters, he's going to have a very good outing like he did against Minnesota in that series finale on opening weekend.
And we'll go from there and see kind of where this bullpen stands. You had to use Steven Matz for 3 innings yesterday after Fetty wasn't able to make it made it through 3, but wasn't able to go out there for the 4th. So you already have burned Steven Matz up until right now, as I keep hitting refresh on Twitter, Stefan. I'm not seeing any kind of roster moves that have been made for the Cardinals today. We talked about it yesterday on the post-game show. I was wondering if we could see something with John King getting sent down, Graceffo being called up just to get another arm up here, because it did seem yesterday like they wanted John King to go out there and kind of just finish off the rest of the game, finish off the 8th before they had to call Chris Roycroft in there to get that final out.
So I think it was my dad yesterday talking with Brad on the broadcast that you can't make roster moves, at least out of the pitcher spot. You can't have a phantom IL stint and recall a player within the first 10 days of the season. The roster flexibility and malleability is a little bit different early on. So that might be a handcuff situation for the Cardinals. I'm not exactly sure about the option situation for John King at this point in time.
And that's what I was talking about, was the option. Yeah, the option situation was more of what I was looking at for that. And I thought that he had I thought he did. I could be wrong on that, though.
No, yeah, I'm not sure about his option situation. And it would make sense, right? Give yourself as much depth as possible. Guys are going to be worn out at the beginning of the season a little bit more than not, because they're pitching with more frequency than they were during spring. But how valuable has it been to have Steven Matz, a guy that can eat up some innings, especially when you don't expect it to be necessary in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. He goes out there, gives you a chance to compete within the game and trust the offense to get back into the flow of the game against, again, the Red Sox, who spent a lot this offseason. They have power top to bottom in their order. Credit to Steven Matz for being that janitor that the Cardinals needed him to be. And when they stretch him out to be a starter, I'm excited to see what he can do in the rotation.
I like that as a nickname for Steven Matz, the janitor, to come in and clean it up. And if he continues to do that, you have to wonder, in about 10 days from now is when we were told they were going to go to that 6-man rotation. we have seen 2 effective outings out of Steven Matz from the bullpen. One cleaning up the mess that Eric Fetty made, and yesterday, or I should say over the weekend, coming in after a rain delay and pitching 4 innings and kind of being a second starter in the back end of the game. That's a valuable weapon to have. That's Matthew Libator had that role last year and pitched really well. And knowing that you have that out there, you wonder if there are some internal talks about, okay, maybe we don't go 6-man. Maybe we keep Steven Matz doing what Steven Matz is doing, because we've seen now in 2 games, we need something like that. And having that is a very valuable piece in your bullpen.
I totally agree. I think that for Steven, it's got to be comforting to know that you're coming in to help out a teammate rather than having to fix a mess of your own. And it's going to be unique to see how John Mozeliak and Chaim Bloom and everybody else figures out, and of course Ollie Marmol will figure out how to use these pitchers in the best way imaginable. But you are absolutely right. I think that him eating up innings is of extreme value with a younger pitching staff, especially Palante and Libator. But they haven't had to go with Matz when those 2 have pitched. It's been your veterans that have been a little bit burnt out. You're going to need him at certain points of the season. I could see him flip-flopping between being a starter and being a reliever. And I think that they will react to his starting schedule based on necessity. If he has to come in and mop up a game, then they're not going to start him on that 6th day. They'll push it back and have somebody start a day early. I think that would make the most sense, and just have him sort of be this floater. Start if you need, relieve if you need, kind of like what they did with Libator a few years ago. Just be as versatile as you could possibly be. That's what's going to help the team.
This is Cards Hub 365, presented by Greybar. Our friends over at Greybar want you to know that if you're still suffering from supply chain issues and they're disrupting your operations, have no fear. Greybar has you covered, and you can rely on their nationwide logistics network to get what you need, where they need, when they need to get there, all within budget. Greybar literally supports products of any industry to serve as that vital link in the supply chain, adding value for customers and suppliers with innovative solutions and services. Visit greybar.com to start an order today. That's greybar.com, and fix those supply chain issues with Greybar, your distributor for electrical and data comm needs. Joe Roderick, Stefan Caray, here with you on Cards Hub 365 on a Saturday, 3:00 start time for the game today. Stefan, lineups are out. If you want to give those to the folks.
Well, you can see on the screen, Lars Nootbaar is going to lead off to play left field. Wilson Contreras is going to be the DH, get him off his feet over at first. Brendan Donovan will bat third, playing second. Nolan Arenado will clean up. Alec Burleson will play first, batting fifth. Good to see him back in the lineup. I think that he's going to be explosive, especially with that pesky pull and right. If he can get his hands through the baseball, he's going to have a big day. Jordan Walker once again in right field. Pedro Paez catching. I know we had a discussion about Pedro in particular. We were excited to see maybe Ivan Herrera try and hit 5 home runs in 3 games, set a Cardinals record. 4 home runs in 2 games. That's the most ever by a Cardinal catcher over a 2-game stretch. Victor Scott will be the cap of the outfield and bat 7th. Bat 8th, excuse me. Mason Wynn bats 9th, playing short. But back to Pedro Paez. I mean, he caught Andre Palante to close out that series against Minnesota. He is a glove first catcher, but you can't sleep on his bat. 400 home run, 3 runs batted in. He's been hitting the ball to the gaps. I don't think you have a bad option as your backstop right now if you're St. Louis.
And it does. We talked a lot in spring training about this and about how much the organization seems like they love Ivan Herrera's bat, and he has shown through the first week of the season why they love his bat with the home runs that he has hit so far. And yesterday, earlier you mentioned the Brant Brown comment about there's home runs are thrown, not hit. I feel like Ivan Herrera hit that home run yesterday. That was a really, really good pitch that Walker Buehler threw. And Herrera just got into that one, and it just kept going and going and going until it snuck over that wall out in right center. But I feel like we thought at some point we would see a Pages catching and Herrera DHing at some point. I know we're still so early into the season, 7 games into the season. They've only faced 2 lefty starters so far. Tomorrow they do face another lefty. Maybe that's something we see. But I think we are all kind of waiting to see what happens when you do have Pages catching, Herrera DHing, and maybe Contreras gets the day off. Maybe Contreras is at first because late in the game, what do you do with it? I mean, you have 3 catchers in your lineup essentially in that situation because Contreras still, he might be first base and DH all year. He's still bringing the equipment to the ballpark. He still is able to get behind there and catch if needed. But I really think that it would be interesting to see what that looks like or what that late game strategy is going to be if you do have Pages catching, Herrera DHing in a situation like that.
Well, the big wrinkle is Luke and Baker out of that group, right? What do you do with Luke and Baker in that situation? They've turned to him against lefties to be the DH, but you're right. If Ivan Herrera's hitting, let him keep hitting. He's got the consistent bat. He's proven that if you look at him over a big league season, he hasn't played a full big league season. He's been kind of up and down. He's been injured. He's going to be around a 300 hitter with a lot of home runs, a lot of power. The question for him is, how is he going to control the run game behind the plate? He was throwing from his knees yesterday. Didn't help him too much, but he is an offensive first catcher. And I think that he is earning every single start that he gets, whether it is out of the DH spot or behind the plate. You're just going to be able to see a lot of different lineups from Ollie Marmol, and he deserves a ton of credit, the manager for the Cardinals, in how he's assembled and constructed these lineups. You don't score 5, 6, 7 runs a game with a bad lineup. I mean, even if you have everybody on the team hitting, if they're not assembled the right way, they're not going to score. You're getting guys up at the right situation. Perfect example was yesterday, tying run to the plate, bases loaded, 13-9, top 9. You have Herrera up with a chance to tie it. It didn't work out for the Cardinals the way they would have hoped, but still, you are assembling the lineup with a chance to win the game every single day. And I've just loved what I've seen from the Cardinals coaching staff and how they've been creative with putting guys in different positions.
Yeah, and that coming from the start of the season where we assumed that it was a 10-man lineup that you kind of had plus Pages. I think that's kind of the way that it seemed to be looked at the beginning. And I was ready to I really thought that we were going to see way more Michael Ciani than what we have so far. But I'm glad we haven't, because Victor Scott earned every single at-bat and every single start that he's gotten so far this year. On top of that, he has continued to produce at the plate. So everything that we're seeing out of Victor Scott continue. I mean, he's a young guy too. He doesn't need days off a week into the season. So same with Mason Wynn. They're just kind of fighting through it with him. So I'm glad that we're not seeing these days off for some of these guys early on in the year, or these rest days or these scheduled days off. So far, they've had those worked in days off. They had off last Friday. They had off on Thursday. So I'm happy to see so far this year that you have a very consistent starting lineup. Luke and Baker, though, I think is making things difficult for Ollie in a good way, in a really good way, because Luke and Baker was supposed to be, all right, he was just that right-handed bat off the bench. You get into a late game situation, Victor Scott up there against a lefty, you're going to throw Luke and Baker up there. Luke and Baker has done such a good job and shown so much out of these at-bats early this year that Luke and Baker earned himself that at-bat yesterday against Aroldis Chapman, to where you're taking Alec Burleson out of the lineup, out of the game, to give that at-bat to Luke and Baker, because you've liked what you've seen out of him so much that you're going to put him in there for a guy that had 3 hits on the day.
Right.
And so Luke and Baker is making these difficult decisions for that. I think 100% chance Luke and Baker's in that lineup tomorrow, but he is that first guy off the bench now in a big time pinch hit situation.
I think the Cardinals are doing a great job marrying both concepts of trying to win and trying to give their young guys some runway. And right now, trying to give their young guys some runway is helping them to win. Victor Scott stealing bases left and right, playing excellent defensive center field. That's helping the Cardinals win. Jordan Walker seeing the opposite field. The team limiting their strikeouts, having the 22nd most strikeouts in the league. So they're in the top 10 in the league in terms of least amount of strikeouts in the major leagues. Nolan Gorman was hitting before he got injured. Brendan Donovan continues to be consistent. Lars Nootbaar is having an excellent campaign. And not to mention Nolan Arenado doing what he does best, and Ivan Herrera having a great start. You're having veteran presence. You're having youthful presence, both on the diamond defensively and at the dish offensively. This is what you want to see. Just great complementary baseball on both sides. But again, you're going to run into a really talented Red Sox lineup today that is not going to let you win easily, especially at their home ballpark on opening day.
Red Sox today, they go with Duran in center, Devers at DH, Bregman at third, Cassis at first, Story at short, Abreu in right, Campbell in left, David Hamilton at second base today, and Connor Wong catching for Boston. So a few changes in their lineup this afternoon. Richard Fitz on the mound for the Red Sox, a guy that I'm not all that familiar with in the Boston rotation.
Yeah, he's just making his 6th career start. Had really good numbers last year in 4 starts with Boston, but he is a breaking ball pitcher. He was sticking with his slider and his sweeper the majority of his first outing against Texas, which was a losing effort for him. He gave up 3 runs, including a home run, 2 home runs, that is, to Wyatt Langford and to Adolis Garcia, who Cardinals fans know well. So this is a guy that will allow the ball to be hit in the air. The Cardinals need to sit on that breaking ball, find a way to drive it, and maybe you'll see a little bit of power over the green monster. But he's a young guy. He is still fresh. He's still new. I know Andre Palante is young, but he has a little bit more experience than Fitz does at this point in time. So we'll see how that plays out. The Red Sox offensively, again, you look at Alex Bregman being one of the bigger signs this offseason. I think a lot of people have swept under the radar how good he has been at Fenway Park. In the history of Fenway Park, there has been no hitter with a higher OPS than Alex Bregman with minimum 75 at-bats. Coming into yesterday, 1240 OPS. He had 2 RBIs, a double. I mean, that's better than Ted Williams. That's better than, Frank Robinson. There's so many players that he has hit better than at Fenway Park over his career. And you have to imagine that it's going to continue for him throughout his Red Sox tenure.
Yeah, those numbers yesterday, they put it up on the TV broadcast, and it's like Pujols at PNC type. I mean, that was, think back in the day whenever Albert was up there, it seemed like every time out there he'd hit a home run off of, was it Oliver Perez? It seemed like every time the Cardinals played, Albert played in PNC, he was facing Oliver Perez and would just homer to dead center out there in the grass. Right. And that's Bregman at Fenway. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear why he wanted to sign there.
I think so. I mean, growing up with the Braves and my grandpa, it was Chipper Jones at Shea Stadium. I mean, he named his son Shea because of how hard he hit the ball at that old ballpark. So some people just have a high comfort level at certain ballparks. I mean, there are hitter-friendly parks, there are pitcher-friendly parks, and there are somewhat neutral parks. And I think that the Cardinals can have a lot of fun at Fenway if they're selective, if they continue to draw walks, if they continue to put these young pitchers in deep counts, which is what they've done all season long. But I'd like to see them continue to stay above 500, continue to build momentum, not have to worry about dipping under 500 because the Cubs are surging, the Brewers are starting to catch their stride. I know we're only 7 games in, but I think there's some confidence in the St. Louis faithful that this is a team that can win the division. I know for a fact that Albert Pujols thinks so. He said it on MLB Network yesterday. So I think that that's the mentality. This is a young, fun group that needs to go and win the games they're supposed to win and then really put pressure on the better teams in the league. It was rattling off all the numbers for the Cardinals offensively. And the only teams that they're trailing are the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, the Yankees, the Dodgers, all of which are either picked to win their division or be in the wild card postseason favorites. So the Cardinals are right in there offensively with all the teams that are being talked about as making deep pushes in October.
And the Cardinals have absolutely no say in how the Cubs perform in the first month of the season. But if you do look at the Cubs' schedule coming up this month, it is a murderer's row of top contending teams that they've already played and that they're going to be going up against the rest of the month. So this is where you need to stay hot and keep the pedal down and go, because all of these wins right now, Cubs are not going to come away with April with the record that they would like. And if they do, then forget about it. I mean, it's going to be their division in the NL Central, but expect them to not have a great April when you look at the teams that they're playing.
Yeah, it's a bit concerning to be in the NL Central in particular, right? It is a wide open division as compared to the rest of the divisions in the National League. The NL East, Braves, Phillies, of course, the Mets are going to be duking it out for that title. In the West, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Padres. It seems like a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers are going to win that division. The Padres are 7-1, and they have played great baseball. If they're a wild card team, it's going to be difficult for a team out of the Central or a team out of the East to try to find a way to make it into the postseason. And thank you, Hulk Hogan's T-shirt. I really appreciate it. For the shout out to my grandpa. This is actually his jersey from the year that he passed back in 2008. So they honored him and Jim Beecham on the shirts. I got to throw out the first pitch, so made sure I wanted to reference that in case people were like, "Why is there a Braves jersey on the back wall?" No, it's going to be a really, really fun season, and I can't wait to see how the Cardinals handle it.
And speaking of the Braves, they win their first game yesterday. Dodgers and Padres both lose their first game yesterday. So everybody is out of the zero column in all of Major League Baseball. Took 7 days to get there, to get every team a win and a loss. But we are finally there, 7 games into the season. Stefan, you will be on post-game coverage tomorrow night after Sunday Night Baseball with Brendan Schaefer. Today, Chris Pelican and Ethan Hannaford have your post-game action after the Cardinals and the Red Sox this afternoon, 3:00 start time out in Fenway. As we are wrapping up things here, want to remind you, though, that we are brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
That's going to wrap it up for our show today. Stefan, we will see you tomorrow. Great first show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great. I love what you guys are doing. And let's hope the Cardinals can get a win so we'll have some positive things to talk about tomorrow and, of course, after the game tonight.
Absolutely. You'll be able to see a lot of Stefan now that he is on the team here at Sports Hub STL. Happy to have him. Lots more coverage coming your way later today with Blues and Cardinal postgame shows right here on Sports Hub STL. As always, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours.